Okay, so we're going to be gluing our boards onto our cloth. Make sure you get a decent amount of glue on your brush. Start from the middle and work your way outwards. You really don't want that glue to start drying. You want it nice and wet on the whole surface. So it's easier for you to do it down. That's what I'm talking about, your masking paper. That way you can maybe work a little bit more quickly. Not worry about getting glue all over your mat. Once you get glue on your mat, then it transfers to everything. Okay, once you've got it on there, be careful, you probably are gonna have glue somewhere. Rinse it off, get your towel, because you don't wanna start transferring it on to your book cloth. So I wanna place this specifically right about here. So put the glue side down. Use your hands to just kind of tack it on. Flip it over, working from the center. You want to use your bone folder. And then you want to define the edges of your board by using the edge of your bone folder. Now don't use it like a pencil. You really want to use the wide edge of your bone folder. This is going to help when you need to turn down those edges, especially if you've got kind of a thicker book cloth like I do. I might have trouble getting that to stick. Okay, so this is what the spacer is for. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my scalpel, keep my hands well out of the way, and trim my book cloth down. If it doesn't cut through on the first try, that's a pretty good indication that you probably need a new blade on your scalpel. You should go through probably one of these a week at this point, if not more. So if you have not changed your scalpel blade at all, do so after watching this video. Okay, so now it's cut. Okay, so now you want to trim the corners. And that's where you take the edges, bring them up, and turn them down so that you have a little kind of triangle piece. Fold it up. You want to get down pretty close and just snip that off. You need to have just enough right there on the edge to fold over the top corner. Okay, you don't want a lot. You just want it to be able, you don't want to fold it like this and have this really sharp edge that actually gets glued down, and then the other two pieces fold on top of it. So you do that to all four corners before you start. Sometimes this is easier to do with your smaller scissors. Again, totally depends on what you're using for cloth material. And you can also err on the side of caution. If you've made your own book cloth and you think it's really thick, you can cut the turn downs, which are these, cut those wider and you'll have more of the cloth to stick to the board. Okay, so you glue the turn down and then you paste it. And you'll see it eke out, and it might pop up a few times, might pop up a lot. Yesterday, I was trying to do this demonstration and I could not get my book cloth to stay down without actually weighing it down. I might have the same problem again today. But you'll get the gist of it. You don't want to glue it down so much that the glue actually all squirts out. And if you're having a little bit of trouble like me, you have to be careful because you're going to get glue all over your tools. So this is where that damp cloth comes in handy to wipe off your fingers, to wipe off tools that get glue on them. The nice thing about the PVA or the glue that we use, it's a little bit thicker than your standard Elmer's. And so where I was using Elmer's at home because I didn't have the PVA, this is working a lot nicer. Okay, once you start, you want to work in clockwise or counterclockwise or clockwise. Okay, you don't want to now do this side. So I'm going to go up here. Make sure you kind of twirl the brush into that corner. Okay, and take some time. Okay, I am trying to fold this corner down, kind of mash it on there. And then do your turnover. If it pops out, so this popped out because it's a thicker one, I'm going to actually glue it down to itself just a little bit right there. And now right here, I've got like a double thickness of book cloth because of the design that I was working with. And this is the shorter side, so there's not as much that's like trying to hold this whole thing down right now. It is really wanting to pop back up on me. So just be patient. Keep working with the glue, keep trying to stick it down. If it pops up, you can use your micro spatula and get a little bit more glue under there. What you don't want to do is just tear this whole thing up because the board is now damp and has glue on it and the board will pop up. Okay, so again, I want to mash that corner down and this guy's starting to pop up. Let's see. Okay, so it popped up right here. Take your micro spatula and just kind of keep some glue under there. Like I said, don't pull it up, and it's starting to come up over here also. Okay, and in the meantime, this has gotten kind of tacky, so that might help me or it might hurt me. So it's probably not gonna work. Not gonna help me too much. This guy pop back up again. So when you have glue that is now starting, you know, this glue is starting to get kind of all over the place here. I might have to just tack this down. Like I might have to just use Rime and weigh it down and allow it to dry that way. Fortunately, this side seems to be staying down. This side's good now. And we're gonna have a repeat with this one because it's the same. It's got this overlap right here. So it's even thicker in some areas. If the question at this point is it easier to use the book cloth? Probably. But if you're simply using it out of ease and not because it works with your design, then that's problematic, okay? Every decision you make should at least be, you know, the overall design should be considered. Okay, so this is the last one. I gotta do both corners first. Okay, so tack both of those down. And start working on that. This side may be sticking down a little bit better because everything else is kind of holding it in place also, all of the tension from the other turn downs. It is finally sticking. Okay, so you would obviously do the other side. And then it comes to mounting. Okay, you have trimmed your boards so that they fit your book precisely. If you haven't, there's a reason for it. If at this point it's a little off, you know, do you have to redo the whole thing? I don't know, it depends on how off. So I've got a little bit of a flag poking out here. I could think creatively about how to resolve that. Am I able to cut some of this off? Will it still work? Or is it okay to just leave it as it is? Okay, so fortunately, the glue that did kind of eke out allowed me to position this and keep it in place. Because this is how you adhere the book to the cover. Okay, so I kind of outlined where that needs to be. Get some of that masking paper again. If you glued on it, make sure the glue is dry and or fold it in half or at least over so that the glue is no longer exposed. This goes right down on the paper. Paper, cardstock, you know, whatever your spine, the first panel of your spine gets glued down and covered so you do not end up seeing them. So very carefully, this is really where, you know, you can do some damage is when you assemble all of it. Very carefully, seat it. Don't press down yet. Make sure it aligns with any of the marks that you made and or that it sits the way that it's supposed to. I'm a little off here. Could be that my spine is a little crooked also. Okay. So if I can pull this back just a little bit more, I might actually be able to tug that flag so that it sits. And until you use your bone folder, you can tug and pull a little bit. You can also tear and ruin it. So, you know, just be careful. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the first panel directly onto the case. Okay, so now my next move is I'm gonna do a paste down. And the paste down is something that covers, if you look at any book, you open up the book, you don't see the turn down more normally. You'll see a page that is actually glued down over this to conceal that. Okay, so I want to make the paste down. I chose this paper simply because it was kind of a scrap in there. My choice is arbitrary, yours should not be. Clear things out of the way that you don't need, tools, scraps. And your paste down should align with the first fold, okay? It should seat right in there, right? Not out like this. The rest, every other edge should measure 3 millimeters in from the edge of the board, except this one that gets seated into the flag book itself, okay? So my measurements of my board were 16 across and 24.6, okay? So on 16 across, I want to subtract 3 millimeters. So that will leave me with 15.7 centimeters. On the 24.6, I want to take 3 millimeters off the head and the tail of the book. So I want to subtract 6 millimeters. So now I'm going to measure my paper. I could do anything. I could have it, you know, kind of go this way as long as I have a piece that's big enough, but I don't quite. I'm going to have mine go vertical just because. And I'm going to measure out 16. 16 once I find my ruler. Okay, so I'm going to measure in 15.7. Three times. Again, you can certainly cut this with your scalpel, or you can give it a fold. I left a little bit up here. Let's see if I can get that off. There we go. It's fine to have a deckled edge. You just want to make sure that it can seat properly. So I'm going to have a deckled edge on the outside. And here is where I am taking 24.6 and subtracting 6 millimeters. So I'm left with 24 centimeters even. Every other edge is cut on this, so I'm making a decision to trim this with my scalpel. And rather than paste this whole surface, because it will get really unwieldy, I'm going to go ahead and paste my board. Okay, and yeah, because I don't want to go all the way to the edge, you kind of feather it out. Oops. And then I do want to go into the edge here as much as I can. Again, without going over and onto the flag book itself. But making sure that there's sufficient glue to spread out as I begin to use my bone folder in just a couple minutes here. Okay. So again, this is where the rubber meets the road. Make sure that you're seating things exactly where they need to be before you really cement them down. So I want to make sure that this space up here is equal to the space down here. Right now it's not. So I'm going to scoot it up just a little bit. And then I want to make sure that it's going to be pretty even and square before I go ahead and lie it down. So if you're pulling and tugging like a little bit, it's fine. It's when you know, if you get really rough with that, you'll end up tearing it. Again, start working your way from the center out. And that is how you end up seating your flag book.